Hello, everybody. I'm Don Counts, and today we're here at the Andrew Jackson Lodge number 68 with Jim Armitage. Jim, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, and I'm glad that we're able to give you an open house tour today. We're the oldest continuous organization in Lincoln County, and I think you'll enjoy the tour and see some of the historical artifacts that we have.
For the folks at home who might not know where we're actually at the end of the bypass and at the corner of Shelbyville Highway, and this building's been here for quite some time.
Well, actually, this building's only been here since 1985, but as we get inside, I'll detail how we've progressed till we got here through the years from 1817.
You have some of your lodge members inside there that we're going to talk to as well, and we're looking forward to the tour of the Andrew Jackson Lodge number 68 right here in Fayetteville, Tennessee.
I'd like to welcome everyone here on this tour of Andrew Jackson Lodge number 68. And first, I'd like to introduce you to some of our members. The first brother here is Brother Dwight Hastings. He's a past master, and he's the district chairman of the 11th Masonic District of the Grand Lodge of Tennessee. The next brother is Mark Blackwelder. He's a past master of this lodge. In fact, he served 2 terms as master of this lodge, and he's our district deputy for Lincoln County. The next brother that I'd like to introduce you to is Brother Jeff Moyers. He is currently serving as our junior deacon and instructor in the lodge. The next brother I'd like to introduce you to is Brother Thomas Hitchcock. He's a past master and also a past district deputy grand master. We're now in the office at Andrew Jackson Lodge, and I'd like to share with you some of the historical artifacts that we have here. Our lodge was actually chartered in 1817 as Warren Lodge number 19. For those of you who may not know who Warren was, he was a very famous Mason in history. In fact, he was a doctor, a medical doctor, and also a brigadier general in the Massachusetts State Militia, which we commonly refer to as the Minutemen. He was also the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts, and he was killed at the Battle of Bunker Hill. So he was a great hero throughout America. But then in 1828, the brothers here at Fayetteville decided to change the name to honor another famous Mason, and that being General Andrew Jackson. So they changed the name, and that charter date was 1828. Now we have all the historical records dating back to 1836. I have them stored up here on the shelves and some down below. Basically, this is the history of Lincoln County here. It's a wonderful resource for genealogical research. Some of the most prominent citizens of Lincoln County are all members here, and their records are detailed in all these records here. Over here on this table, I've put out some of the historical artifacts, and I'd like to go over those with you. During the period of the American Civil War, Fayetteville, Lincoln County was occupied by Union forces. We continued to meet up until 1863. And at that time, we were meeting with the Oddfellows Lodge number 26, which is located, well, they're gone, but we met up on the 3rd floor of the Tigress building right down on the square. We met there from 1850 until the summer of 1863. Because of the occupation, we weren't allowed to hold our meetings anymore, and a lot of our equipment was destroyed and burned by the occupying Union forces. After the war, we got many letters from our brother lodges in Alabama and Kentucky asking for assistance, financial assistance to rebuild their lodges. And I'd like to share one of the letters. This is from Florence, Alabama, and it's addressed to the worshipful master, wardens, and brethren of Jackson Lodge number 68. And it says, "Brethren, in the year 1863, Colonel Gournier, commanding a regiment of United States cavalry, made a raid into North Alabama and occupied this place. The colonel ordered several buildings to be burned contiguous to the Masonic Lodge Hall, which caused its destruction also. We are anxious to rebuild our hall and appeal to our brethren to aid and assist us in doing so. We therefore, a committee appointed for the purpose, ask of your lodge in the name of the principles of which adorn our order the sum of $500 to aid us in undertaking our rebuilding efforts. And this again was dated in Florence, Alabama, November 8, 1871. And I've got several such letters here. I have a couple of beautiful certificates that were used back in the 1800s, membership certificates. Also, I have an appeal to the state of Tennessee Grand Lodge for assistance, and especially the Brethren of Jackson Lodge number 68. This is again another appeal for damages done in the Civil War so they could rebuild, and this one is dated 1870. Another artifact I have here is a letter that was written by our secretary, and it's dated August 8, 1859, and it has our lodge seal on it. Another beautiful artifact, this is a master's apron of the 4th degree from the approximate period of 1820 to 1850. This was hand painted. It's made out of lambskin and has cotton sewn to the back. And if you lift the flap up, we find that this beautiful master's apron was painted by Mrs. Mary Whittington in Pulaski, Tennessee. And you'll see on the apron many of the ancient symbols of our fraternity on here. At this time, I'd like to ask Jeff if he will talk about our modern aprons and the officers' jewels.
This is one of our modern aprons. It is the master's apron, as you can tell with the square on it. We also have jewels that we wear around our neck, and each corresponds with a certain jewel. As you can see, we have a square jewel for the square apron. And all of these jewels have an apron that corresponds to them also in our modern lodges today. The jewels of our principal officers are the Tyler, the secretary, the treasurer. This is the worshipful master, junior warden, secretary, chaplain, senior steward, junior steward, senior deacon, senior warden, and junior deacon.
And what we have here is the old cornerstone from our location before we came here in 1985 to this building. We used to be down at the old Piggly Wiggly building on College Street. We were there from 1958 until we moved here in 1985. We met upstairs in the Piggly Wiggly. We rented, to them downstairs. And after we sold the building in '85 and moved here, we removed the cornerstone. There's no point in leaving it there, so we brought it here. And we just have it displayed under what we call the Royal Arch. That's part of the 4th degree.
I'd like to call your attention to some of our other stuff here on the wall. These are 3 of our Masonic presidents from the state of Tennessee. Also, we have had 14 presidents of this United States that have been Master Masons. And this here is Artie Murphy. He was the most decorated soldier in World War II, and he was also a Master Mason and a 33rd degree Mason.
I'd like for Brother Mark Blackweller, past master of this lodge and also the district deputy for Lincoln County, to tell you about some of our awards and our display case here and a little bit more of the history of our lodge. Mark?
This display case is just replicas that we've gotten of a lot of things. We have Desert Storm Bible that was carried by an officer in Desert Storm that was a member of this lodge. And we have a lot of our old minutes. We have a lot of the Shriners emblems in here that are from deceased members. our York Rite, our Scottish Rite, we have a lot of that in here. This is Andrew Jackson, who was a past Grand Master of the state of Tennessee. And this is a picture that we redone. In Lincoln County, at one time there was 13 lodges. Now we only have one. But that was in the days when all our meetings were held on the full moon. And the reason for this was people had to walk or ride horses or ride buggies or whatever. And since the invention of cars, we don't have that many lodges anymore. This lodge is the only one left in Lincoln County. But at one time there were 13 lodges in Lincoln County.
I'd like for Brother Tom Hitchcock, past master, to tell a little bit about Brother Kennedy and address some other subjects for you at this time.
Brother William Edmiston Kennedy, 1794 to 1863. He was a member of Warren Lodge number 19 in Fayetteville, Tennessee, chartered in October 1817, elected Worshipful Grand Master in October 1827, and re-elected Worshipful Grand Master in October 1928. Warren Lodge failed, and charter was granted to Jackson Lodge number 68, F and AM. Kennedy signed a charter to Jackson Lodge number 68 in November 1827. Name later changed to Andrew Jackson Lodge number 68, Free and Accepted Masons. There are some thoughts of Freemasonry, of how it evolved, but most Masonic historians believe that it started in the early Stone Age, or not the Stone Age, but the early building of the temples in the Middle Ages. They were referred to as stonemasons, or the Stonemasons Guild. They devised forms of recognition so they could travel from country to country, where they could build different buildings, and they would do this so they could support their families, their friends and families, and widows, and support the other Masons if needed. The first Grand Lodge, the first modern Grand Lodge, was opened or formed in 1717 in London. There was 4 separate lodges, and they joined together to form one Grand Lodge. At that time it was referred to as the Mother Grand Lodge of England. In 1832, a Mason named Henry Price immigrated to Boston, Massachusetts. And there he met several other Masons. So he sailed back to London and obtained a charter, or warrant, as it's called, to open a Grand Lodge in Massachusetts. In 1732, he sailed back from England with the proper paperwork, got the required number of Masons together, and formed a Grand Lodge of Massachusetts, which at that time was called the Mother Grand Lodge of America. Since that time, each state in the United States has a Grand Lodge. Currently, there are about 6 million Masons throughout the world. 2 million of them are in the United States. Each state has a Grand Lodge, which all the lodges in that particular state answer to. And that is how Freemasonry was devised, or came to be, in this country.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the awards and all that we've earned over the years here at Andrew Jackson Lodge. Of course, this first display here is the structure of Freemasonry. There are many different degrees or levels, if you were, in Freemasonry. We have in the lodge here, we only have 3 degrees. We have the degree of entered apprentice, the degree of fellowcraft, and then Master Mason, which is a 3rd degree. You've probably heard people say, oh, he's giving me the 3rd degree. That's what they're talking about, because to earn the third degree, there's quite a bit of work involved. It's not just given away, it's something that a brother has to earn. And this just shows you the steps that you go through to become a Master Mason. And some of our allied organizations, I'm sure everyone's heard of the Shriners, the Scottish Rite, the Grotto, there's various other Masonic bodies, we call them. But Freemasonry, the heart of Freemasonry, is the Blue Lodge. That's your Master Mason. That's the heart of all Masonry. And coming down this wall here, these are various awards that our York Rite chapter, council, and commandery have earned over the years. On down to present, this is the latest award that we received from Grand Lodge of Tennessee right here for our certificate of participation in what they call Vision 2013. And what that is to restore our Grand Lodge building, which is located in Nashville. It's a beautiful building, in fact, it's only 2 blocks away from the old Ryman Auditorium in downtown Nashville. And then as we come on down, we have other awards here. It's from the Grand Lodge of Tennessee. We were recognized with a certificate of recognition, and our commandery of Knights Templars received a certificate of merit. And coming on down this wall here is all of our Eastern Star chapter awards. Now, the Eastern Star is the largest fraternity in the world. It's comprised of females that are related to a Mason by blood or marriage, and also Masons may also join the Order of the Eastern Star. We have a very active chapter here, and basically they're like our Ladies Auxiliary. They help us with different projects we have during the year. And you're probably looking at this old sword here on the wall. We don't use it, but it's been in our lodge for over 100 years, and it's just a symbol of the office of the man, the brother who sits outside our door. He's called our Tyler, and he's supposed to make sure that no one intrudes in our lodge when we're conducting our business meetings, is all that is. Then over here on this wall, opposite, we have a few pictures of installation of officers over the years. And this picture here is when this lodge building was dedicated. The Grand Master came down from Nashville and formally dedicated it, our cornerstone there. It's a ceremony. In fact, George Washington took part in a cornerstone dedication at the Capitol, and that picture is very famous. You can find it all over the internet. We spoke earlier of the Piggly Wiggly building down on College Street that our lodge owned from 1958 till 1985. This is all the brothers lined up out here. The lodge met upstairs and they rented the downstairs to the Piggly Wiggly. A few years back, we sponsored a youth baseball team. We provided them with their equipment and their uniforms.
I'm going to give you the names and the years of our masters of this lodge, beginning with 1930, 31, and 32. That brother his name was Richard Massey Coleman, and he was master from 1930 through 1932. Charles O. Bledsoe was master in 1934. Joe Rogers Pigg was master in 1937. Monroe D. Crabtree, 1939. Woodrow Bryant Pilot, 1941. H. Stevenson, 1945. Terrell Twitty, 1946. Will Thomas Graham, 1949. Younger R. Pitts, Jr., 1951. Paul Marquez, 1952. K.O. Richardson, 1954. Otis Dye, 1955. Joe Sir, 1956. Lawrence E. Bradford, 1958. Otis R. Couch, 1959. Alvis E. King, 1961. Robert W. Curry, 1962. James W. Tallman, 1963. William S. Green, 1964. Ralph Harrison, 1965. Morgan Whitsett, 1969. Glenn Moore, 1970. Robert Nelson, 1971. Clarence Milton Haynes, 1973. Larry Staton, 1974. Virgil Dickey Jones, 1979. Marshall Bradley Wonderling, 1980. William D. Stovall Jr., 1981. Thomas Conrad Schweitzer, 1982 and 1983. Thomas Alexander Taylor, 1987. Howard Allen Moore, 1989. Daniel Jackson Graham II, 1991. Carl Bishop Hall, 1992 and 1999. William Roy Askins Jr., 1993 and 2000. Samuel McReynolds Calloway, 1994. Robert Alton Rowe, 1995. John Harwell Dickey, 1996. Steve Carter, 1997. Charles Arthur Galt, 1998 and 2001. Robert Alexander Hamilton Jr., 2005. Adam Carter Eubanks, 2007. Mark Blackwelder, 2002 and 2009. And our current master, Jim Rogers Armitage, 2010.
We're entering into the lodge room at Andrew Jackson Lodge, and I'd like to introduce Brother Dwight Hastings, past master, who is our district chairman for the 11th Masonic District of the Grand Lodge of Tennessee, and he would like to give us a little bit of history of the Grand Lodge of Tennessee. Dwight?
Brother Jim, thank you for inviting me here this morning. I'd like to give a few words on our Grand Lodge of Tennessee. Our Grand Lodge received its charter from North Carolina. Received this in 1813, and it was originally in Knoxville. We received this on December the 27th, and we have this little commemorative pin to commemorate our 200th anniversary, and it is in the shape of our charter with the state of Tennessee and North Carolina on it. Our Grand Lodge building was originally in Knoxville, downtown Knoxville, and it is now located in Nashville at the corner of 7th Avenue and Broad. This building was originally built in 1926 by one of our subordinate bodies, the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Our Grand Lodge bought this building in 1929 and moved there and is still there at this time. We have a Grand Lodge in each state, and the Grand Lodge supports our 340 subordinate lodges in Tennessee. Our Grand Lodge convenes once a year, and each subordinate lodge has the opportunity to have a representative there to vote on whatever proposals come up at that particular communication and to discuss whatever other business may come before the communication. We have 6 Grand Lodge officers that are elected each year at that communication, and our Grand Lodge is basically run like a business. Our CEO is our most worshipful Grand Master, and each year they're elected, and they come from all over the state, and they come from every walk of life. Our Chief Operating Officer is our Grand Secretary, and he handles the business on a day-to-day basis. We've got several employees. I think we've got 2 permanent employees and a couple of part-time employees, and they handle the business that comes in on each day from each subordinate lodge, and their secretaries from our subordinate lodges. The state is divided into 26 districts, and each district chairman has a district deputy for each county in his district. The Grand Lodge has a code book or a law book that each subordinate lodge should have, and they use that as a general guide for doing business during the year. And anything that's not covered in that code book is handled by the Grand Master. And if it can't wait until the Grand Lodge is in communication, then it will be voted on by the brethren of the communication. We have several committees to help run this organization, and one of which is the Finance Committee, and they present a balanced budget each year to be voted on by the brethren of the lodges or the representatives from each one of our subordinate lodges. And then our other committee chairman presents their reports to be approved by the members of the lodge.
We're now entering the lodge room at Andrew Jackson Lodge, and I'd like to explain to you a little bit about what goes on here. Of course, this is where all our business meetings and our degree work takes place in this room here. This room is very sacred to Masons, and when we're in here, we're at a very reverent attitude, and everyone dresses appropriately before you come in here. As we go around the room, I'd just like to describe some of the things again. Where our officers sit, we call them stations and places in the lodge. Where you see these two staffs here, the wooden staffs with the emblems on the end, these are our stewards. Our junior steward, our senior steward sits here. At this station here, in this chair, underneath a picture of Brother George Washington, who, by the way, was past master of Alexandria Lodge number 22 in Alexandria, Virginia. He was actually offered the position of Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Virginia, but at the time he was president, and he didn't think that he could do both at the same time, understandably. But this station here, this chair and pedestal, belongs to our junior warden. Equivalent to another organization would be like our second vice president. And as we move around, we come next to the station of the lodge secretary. Mark, tell us a little bit about our lodge charter we have hanging here, and maybe a little bit about some of the locations that we've met during our lodge history, please.
This charter was presented to our lodge in 1828, and this is the original charter. This charter has hung in several different buildings in Lincoln County, particularly in Fayetteville. The Tigress, which is just on the square in Fayetteville, it was there at one time. Our lodge was there at one time. The KP building on the northwest side of the square, the charter was there at one time. There was a boarding house just off the square, which none of us know about. Our charter hung there at one time because our lodge was there. And the most recent one, other than this building here, was an old Piggly Wiggly supermarket. We owned that property, which we sold to Gerald Chapman for his grocery store several years ago to build this building. And that's where the charter has been in Lincoln County for the Andrew Jackson Lodge.
And continuing around the lodge, we end up at the station of the Worshipful Master. That's a very respectful title. Of course, it doesn't mean we worship him. Similar to in England, when you're in a courtroom, you address the judge as your lordship, not your honor. It's just a respective Old English title. The Worshipful Master of the lodge is equivalent to the president of another club or organization other than Freemasonry. And the Worshipful Master, of course, every officer in the lodge would be wearing their officer apron, we call them a jewel or neck cord with the emblem that corresponds with the apron, as Brother earlier. And with one additional thing, the Worshipful Master wears the master's hat. And of course, that's got the square on it, as you see also on the podium here. And the master also has the gavel. He controls everything that goes on in the lodge with certain raps of the gavel. As we come on around the lodge, the next officer is our senior deacon. And that's his staff, and it's got the emblem that matches his neck cord, or jewel as we call it, and his apron. Here sits our treasurer. The emblem you see back here beside our beautiful American flag is the emblem for the Order of the Eastern Star. Again, that's the Ladies Auxiliary, and they have many charitable campaigns throughout the year. I guess the biggest one that the Order of the Eastern Star does is they donate money to help young men and women who are entering the ministry. They help pay for their fees through seminary. And as we continue around the lodge, this is a station that we do not use. Now, the ladies of the Eastern Star do use this station. This is considered to be the north side of the lodge. And I neglected to tell you, but every Masonic Lodge is laid out the same, east to west. The presiding officer, the worshipful master, of course, sitting in the east. And the ground floor that you're looking at here is a representation of the ground floor of King Solomon's temple, as described in the Holy Bible. Proceeding on back here now, this is what we call the west, or the senior warden station in the lodge. The senior warden would be the equivalent to a vice president of another type of club or organization, but we call him our senior warden. He's a very important officer in the lodge. In the absence of the worshipful master, he would preside over the business meeting. Proceeding on through to the center of the lodge room floor, this is the most sacred part of our lodge. We call it our altar. And as you can see, we have the Holy Bible and the symbols of our lodge. In every Masonic Lodge is a square and the compasses. Everything that we do in Masonry is based on the Holy Bible. We are not a religion, we're a fraternity, and we love God and we serve God as best we can. And you all heard about that Masonry has secrets. Well, the real secret in Masonry is that we take men and make better men out of them. As far as the secrets in Masonry go, there really are no secrets. It's just that if you aren't a Mason, you don't need to know what we do. If you want to know what we do, if you're a man of good character, if you're over 18 years of age, all you have to do to become a Mason is to ask a Mason, and he'll get the application. But I've heard people say, oh, you have secret handshakes and all this. Well, we have a handshake, but it's not really a secret. Even when I was in Boy Scouts, and you probably were too, you have a Boy Scout handshake. Others may not know what the Boy Scout handshake is, but if you weren't a Boy Scout, you don't need to know what it is. So again, there really are no secrets in Freemasonry. It's the oldest continuous worldwide fraternity of men, and we exist solely to help those that are less fortunate than we are, and to provide enlightenment for our members and for others. At this time, I'd like to ask Jeff to come up and discuss a little further about some of our Masonic symbols and a little bit more in detail about how a man would become a Mason.
Our symbols were brought down to us through the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, most men were illiterate. They did not write. They couldn't read. So they put their symbol down as their mark. And the symbol was the mark of their trade, be it a square, a compass. And we have taken those symbols over the years and we use the moral applications of them. We take the square, we square our conduct with all mankind. Our compasses, we use them to circumscribe our desires, to keep our desires within bounds so that we're not out doing the things that we shouldn't be doing. We've got that in our heart to know what we should and shouldn't do. To become a member of our great fraternity is real simple. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the bumper stickers that says, "To be one, ask one." Well, it means exactly what it says. Just find a Mason. Go to them. Ask them. Go to the websites. Look up the Grand Lodge of your state. It'll have a place on there, how to become a Mason. It will give you numbers of the secretaries of the lodges, of most lodges, and you can call them, set up an interview, talk to them. And then it's just a matter of filling out a petition and getting to know some of the guys and getting in there and learning about it. It's a wonderful fraternity. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope to see some of you out there.
Well, Jim, we cleared up a lot of secrets, if there are secrets.
Not really, not really. But I thank you and FPU and the citizens of Fayetteville for this opportunity to give you a little open house tour of our lodge and maybe explain a few things that people had kind of wondered about over the years about what those people up there on the hill do.
A lot of history here, and it's something we're honored to have the opportunity to show the people at home what all you do.
Well, it was a real pleasure, and again, we have a great genealogical resource here dating back to 1836 with our records, and I'm always willing to share information with the Lincoln County Historical Society or Genealogical Society. I know most of them. They can contact me anytime if they would like to find out a little bit more about the history.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. I want to thank Patrick
Yes,
Bradford.
thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Don, and thank you, FPU.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we appreciate y'all watching here on Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6. And Jim, what if someone was interested and wanted to know some more information? Is there a phone number they can contact?
They can call me at home. My phone number is 433-2555, and I'd be honored to talk to anyone that wanted to talk.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you watching here on Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6. I'm Don Counts, and we'll see you back in here next time.